Hi, Claire and James here. Just before we get stuck into this week's episode, we wanted to let you know the exciting news that the Midlife Reset audit is now live. This is a first of its kind personalised diagnostic tool designed for midlifers by midlifers.
In just 3 minutes, the audit will help you pinpoint what's really holding you back from living your healthiest, happiest midlife, and most importantly, provide tailored strategies on how to take back control. Midlife doesn't have to be a time of uncertainty. It can be an era of growth, discovery, and well-being. So to go ahead and take the audit, go to themidlifementors.com/audit. On this week's episode, we sit down with Michelle Ford, host of the incredibly successful podcast, Two Women Chatting. Michelle shares her story about becoming an empty nester to discovering her love and passion for podcasting.
She also describes how, as she's entered this new phase of her life, she's overcome many of her doubts and fears. So much so that Michelle has interviewed some amazing guests, such as Dame Judi Dench, Andrea McLean, Claire Sweeney and Anthea Turner. This is such a relatable discussion with some amazing nuggets of advice, and we know you're going to find it uplifting, inspiring and fun.
Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Mentors with me, James.
And me, Claire. How are you all? We have just got back. We're just saying to our lovely guest, we've just got back from Ibiza and it's grey again. We had 2 days where it was quite nice, but it's gone back to grey.
It was quite nice to land and have a sunny Sunday, wasn't it? Sunday we got back and it was sunny, and Monday was Sunday we thought, oh, this is great. But no, it's reverted back to type. Grey, cloudy, drizzle.
But I'm not going to, that sounds really ungrateful because we did have an amazing time in Ibiza. We got up every single morning like crazy fools for sunrise swims.
We did.
So we're there with our coffee, having sunrise swims, while everyone that had just come from the clubs was still partying and, let's say, merry slash little bit high, watching the sunrise. Yeah. So they were looking at us like we were weird.
It was quite interesting, wasn't it? We would get in the sea and swim in the darkness. They were looking at us going, what are they doing?
No, it was lovely. So we had a couple of days where we used to live in Santa Eulalia, and then a couple of days near the old town, which was just lovely.
It was fantastic.
Nice to split it.
Nice to split it. It makes us miss the old Ibiza. I mean, London is great. The weather's not so much.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Not that we're hankering after moving back to Ibiza, hasten to add. Anyway, let's jump in to our wonderful guest that we have today for you listeners. Really excited.
So we have Michelle from the podcast Two Women Chatting. Hi, Michelle. How are you doing?
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you. So why don't we jump straight in?
I think I sound a bit echoey. I've moved my furniture around in my little studio shed, and I've exposed more floor, and I think I need a nice plush carpet in here because I'm sounding quite tinny. So sorry to your listeners if I'm sounding a bit tinny.
An excuse to go and invest in like a nice new rug or something.
That sounds like something nice to me. I was very stereotypical there, actually. I was about to say not something that a man would normally say.
Well, that's the interior design one. When you first came to my apartment, when you moved in with me, you were shocked.
Oh,
my taste.
Oh, my goodness.
My Baywatch posters.
Babe, if there had been a Baywatch poster, I would have very quickly turned around and come back to England. I tell you that. No, I do have to say, no one's ever heard the story. Exactly. So I heard the story of me moving over to Ibiza. I took my sofa because I had a beloved sofa that I'd spent a lot of money on, and it was only a few months old. So I took it over to Ibiza. But the rest of James's flat, it was definitely a bachelor pad. Let's just say.
Let's leave that there.
I whipped it into shape though, as us women do. Anyway, back to you, Michelle. Let's talk about how why you started the Two Women Chatting podcast. How did it come to be?
So, I mean, in midlife, Let's take it back a little bit. In my 20s, I worked for the BBC, and I hankered after being a TV presenter. I really, really wanted to do that. I did training and I was working in radio production. And then through one thing and another, I had a real crisis of confidence, and I shrunk into myself. I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be seen and looked at. And actually, my husband was amazing, and he sort of got me through it. And, over the last few years, I've taken on more things that are maybe more public facing. So I do a big charity event where I live, and I've run tennis communities in Singapore and here. And I've been doing voice acting actually for 20 years. So, that's behind a mic, love a script, love behind the mic. You don't have to see me or anything. And then during COVID, as happened with so many people, one of the few people I could talk to in the garden was my neighbour, Liz. And we just found ourselves falling over ourselves. We were laughing, we were having a good time. We were both in the same place, empty nesters, just becoming so. And we're kind of dreading it because we're very family orientated, and we knew we were going to miss our boys. They were the last to leave the nest. And it was one of our daughters, actually, who just said, "You two are kind of ridiculous. Why don't you just make this into a podcast? Because a small proportion of what you say could be vaguely interesting." And that's what we did. So back in November 2021, Liz and I started a podcast and really enjoyed it. We started on our own, and then honestly, my confidence grew, my elbows got sharper, and I managed to get some really, really good, amazing celebrity guests to come and join us until it became a weekly thing where we would talk about all sorts of midlife topics, some serious, some less serious, some sort of celebrity focused or health focused. And then fast forward to earlier this year, and unfortunately, Liz did the very unwise thing of listening to our guests' expert opinion, who suggested that everyone should look at their life balance and decide if that's what they really want. And honestly, as you guys would know, podcasters, they don't throw themselves together. It's such a lot of work. It's not just this bit. It's not just the talking, it's the promotion, it's the understanding the tech behind it. And there's just so much. I didn't really expect that, to be honest, and neither did Liz. And anyway, she's going to be, she's just turned 60. She's going to be a grandma later this year. And she just said, you know what? My priorities have changed. And she still lives 2 doors away from me. She still takes my bins out if I'm away, and we're still great mates. And I think that's quite a success story to have exited this podcast journey and still remained friends. So she's still very supportive, and we work on this charity event together as well. And I feel like, wow, aren't we grown up to have managed to negotiate and navigate that pivot? So that's where we started. I will tell you, though, we made a lot of mistakes along the way, and we learned a lot along the way because we had I can do the mic thing, that's fine. But like I say, learning how to operate a platform and upload it and edit multi-track. It's very different, isn't it, when you've got more than one person speaking? All of a sudden, it's a whole different dimension to your somewhat basic editing skills. And one thing that we did do, which we thought we were quite clever, we came up with this wonderful name, Lifestyle Lounge, which we thought kind of covered all sorts of things, and we could go into, interiors and events and stuff. Lifestyle Lounge. We registered it at a company's house. We're terribly pleased with ourselves. And about 6 months later, somebody mentioned to us that they had Googled us, and it turns out that Lifestyle Lounge is a swingers club in LA. So that was unfortunate.
Not the lifestyle you were looking for.
Not that lifestyle, not the Pampas grass for me. No, thank you very much.
No, and I think,
I love that.
As you were saying that, I was just thinking it's really interesting. I think I always have that phrase, like, life is what happens when we're making other plans. And I think we can go in a direction thinking it's one thing, and then it rolls out into something different and unexpected. Like, obviously, your partner kind of saying at the beginning of the year, this is my life balance, what I want has changed. But at the same time, it's like you've been now given that opportunity where you were holding back. and maybe not wanting to be so public facing. It was almost like maybe you needed that partner to kind of get you going, but now you're on your own and you've got this whole new solo confidence that we might not have had we gone it alone in the first place. Does that make sense? It's just something that really came to me there.
Claire, you have absolutely nailed it. That you really have, because I wouldn't have started the podcast without Liz. She was my wing woman. We shared the successes and the failures at the beginning. And one thing that has been consistent in my life is giving up. And that partly, I think now I know that I have ADHD that was diagnosed last year. Partly it's because, this is fun. Oh, squirrel. Like, I'm gone. And then without having Liz to keep pushing me back on track and like, Michelle, I get that you're creative, but we can't do 5,000 things at once. And I didn't want to let her down either. So there were times when I thought, this is boring. I hate social media. I don't want to do this anymore. Why am I even doing it? And I thought, no, Liz and I are doing this together. So yes, you're absolutely right, Claire, because I did it with a friend, a support, a wing woman. That's why I started. And I did find my the more I did fake it till you make it. That's been my motto for life, really. But, gradually, I didn't hate every single photo I saw of myself on social media. Gradually, I did realize I'm not terrible at interviewing. And gradually, as I mentioned, my elbows got sharper and I just ask anyone, if I'm at an event, I'll just go up and ask somebody, would you be on the podcast? Would you like to talk to me right now? Should we do a little live to camera? I mean, when I did things like that, I'm not kidding, public speaking and Insta lives and things like that, I would feel quite physically sick because I was ready for failure. But I did push through it. And I'm really, really glad I did, because now I feel like I'm not a bad role model to my kids either. My husband is really proud of me. My 90-year-old mum, who never says anything good about me, I know she kind of tells people at the old people's home what I do, and I know she's sort of proud of me, and I'm kind of proud of me. So, it's that English cultural thing that you can't be too proud of yourself or big yourself up too much. You're all that in a bag of chips. But it is quite nice to feel like you've achieved something, especially in midlife, when I never thought I'd get that opportunity, quite honestly.
Michelle, honestly, I'm just listening to you and I just love your honesty and openness around that, because I feel like what you're saying really resonates with me as well. There are so many moments where at the beginning, James will tell you, when we had 38 Degrees North, we still run 38 Degrees North with our retreats business. So before COVID, and I was doing Instagram lives, I was doing piece to cameras, James will tell you, I would record them, get rid of them, record them. I was there for hours. I was so unbelievably critical of myself. And I hated it. I knew I had to do it, but it didn't come naturally. And I kept setting myself up for failure. I was just like, oh, my goodness, that doesn't make sense. And just being so uber critical. So what you're saying there really resonates with me as well, where I just had to see it through. I had to get comfortable being really uncomfortable and just getting on with it. And I do think what you said as well about having Liz, having that partnership does really help give you a bit of grounding. I just wanted to say thank you for that, because I wonder if there are other people out there listening to this thinking, I really want to start a project, or I really want to do something, but I've got to be ready and I've got to have the confidence and I've got to have a success mindset. You don't actually. There are plenty of us out there that feel like imposters, like total imposters.
Life is not a rehearsal, is it? You may get another chance, but chances are you won't get another chance. So, I personally think there's quite a small window. And I had a chat with my husband about this the other day. So he is, what can I say? He works in the corporate world. He has a very busy job. He travels a lot. If I didn't do this, I have to say I'm not the shopping, lunching only. Well, I do play a lot of tennis, to be fair, but I'm not that person where I want to stay at home doing nothing. So right now, well, he's kind of busy. I'm also busy finding myself. And he said, because we're empty nesters now, he said, I've got a trip to Singapore. Do you want to come? I'm like, yeah, that'd be lovely, because we used to live there. And then he said, yeah, but while I'm in Singapore, I'm going to be in Shanghai for 3 days. So I'm going to leave you there. You can see friends or whatever. And I thought to myself recently, actually, I've got quite a lot of stuff happening that week, which are really interesting events that I want to go to. So I said, you know what? I've thought about it and I'm not going to come with you. And he came back to me next morning. I could tell he's been digesting this and he's almost offended. He said, should I be worried that you don't want to come to Singapore with me? And I said, no, why? He said, well, why don't you want to come to Singapore with me? I said, because honestly, James, I've got one shot at this. I'm 55 and I really think I've got like 5 years when I really want to invest all my passion into this project and do it well. And I don't want to go and lay by a hotel pool all by myself and spend 14 hours on a plane in Singapore because I won't see you. You'll be at business meetings. But what I can do here is I'm going to be on stage at Weybridge Festival and, I'm scared to death of it, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to push myself to do it. And he said, oh, okay, well, all right, I get it now. And I said, look, it's just because give me this small window. Let me give it 110%. And when you and I decide we're ready for the next phase of our lives, I'll give it all up. Because then I'll want to have a dash hound and play bingo and travel and whatever it is in my next phase of life. That'll be fine. But right now, I'm going to be a bit selfish and not in a rude way, but in a respectful way. And right, it's my chance, really.
I love this. I love it.
I love that.
I love hearing that background to your story as well. And like why, really the essence of why you've decided to do this. It's really important that people hear that.
And that will inspire a lot of listeners.
Well, I hope so. But I do really think that communication is key because one of the things I go on about on my podcast is midlife is a wonderful time to reinvent yourself. It's a pivot time. And I truly believe that we're halfway there, not halfway done. So when you're in your 40s or your 50s, if you suddenly come up with this idea or decide that you're going to open an Etsy shop or go back to work, if you forget to have those conversations with your partner about why you want to do it, you're not undermining somebody, but you are changing and your needs are going to change as you find purpose. You might find that you're confident and you're out more. That could be quite scary, perhaps, to your partner who's not used to seeing you go out to networking events by yourself or not being by their side for all of their working events as well. So I think, and I'm sure you say this all the time as midlife mentors, that communication is so key. Discuss why you want to do it and why you need their support and why, household chores might just change a little bit because you've both got things that you might want to do differently or travel.
Yeah, you're right. It's so important. It's something we speak about all the time and we speak to our clients about is getting that communication right in relationships because people often kind of drift into this place of assumption where they just like assume what the other person's thinking, feeling, and they never really get it out in the open. But it's nothing to be afraid of because once you do, then everyone's clear, right? And you can do it in a kind way. And then everyone knows where they stand and you can do great stuff together, but also be free to pursue your own projects as well. So I love that. I love what you've shared there.
Yeah. And you're so right. That kind of, our values do change. And I think to not know how to communicate how you're shifting and how you're transforming at midlife, it can be very tricky. So the fact that we're navigating these conversations, even on our podcasts, you on yours and ours, on ours, I think it's really, really important to make people understand that it's completely normal that we're changing. Our values are changing. We are transforming into something new. We kind of call it that second adolescence. We're kind of shedding our old skin, moving into something new, really shifting into a very powerful place. And like you said, if you're in relationships and they've seen the old you, it can be very, very unsettling. Very unsettling. So communication is absolutely key, like you said.
And we kind of talked about me sort of discussing the empty nest. And I think one thing that is very important about approaching the empty nest is preparation. Because when that child or those children have left the nest, if you don't have another subject of conversation or a mutual hobby or some goals that you want to do together, that can be such a time of conflict and disappointment and loneliness, right? Because, chances are, if you think about your conversations with your partner, I don't know, a 70% about your children. What's Billy done? Has Sandra passed her O levels? Where is so and so going to go to university? It sucks up so much energy talking about your kids, which is all well and good, and in the right place, that's wonderful. But I really, truly believe that we are more than our kids. And as we come into midlife, that's when we need to find us again. But we also need to find us as a couple again. What are we going to talk about? Not just finances. That's kind of boring. My husband and I recently, he's been playing golf all of his life. I'm fairly hopeless at golf, but I said, all right, I'll come to the range with you. I'll get a lesson and, I'll try it. I'm a tennis gal, but, I'm going to try this because I'm not going to be a golf widow. And for 2 reasons, I don't want him dropping dead on the golf course and I do not want to be left at home. So I'm going to try that and he's going to try and play paddle with me. So I think there has to be some give and take. And that's what I'm talking about, is the preparation. Before they even leave, what are you going to do? What are you going to develop your relationship into that's not purely children focused?
Actually, I was talking to a coaching client the other day, and it might be actually maybe helpful to just discuss what some of those really common fears are of your children flying the nest and becoming an empty nester. Would you be able to discuss what you, in your own experience, but also the many people that you've interviewed on your podcast, what would you say is kind of some of those really big fears of being an empty nester when your children leave?
But I'm not going to lie, it is hard. If you've got a good relationship with your kids, and each kid is different, right? So when my eldest daughter, Jemima, when she left, it was like, don't let the door hit you on the way out, because she was still eye rolling and back chatting and like, bye now, be quick. When my middle one left, she went off to California and I was heartbroken because I was thousands of miles away in Singapore. And when my third, Josh, left, I was that typical, like, I'm grabbing him by the ankles, don't leave this house. And I knew it was going to be really tough. And of course it is. When all 3 of them are gone, the house feels different. You go and lay the table and you put an extra knife and fork by mistake. You're still cooking for 4. In our case, we were eating for 4 and we had to address that too. But yes, it does feel different. So especially those early weeks. So, I'm not sure when this podcast will be coming out, but as summer approaches and kids are getting ready to go off to university, that's when I thought, I'm going to make sure I'm really busy, quite honestly, because I knew I was going to miss Josh so much. So I booked theatre tickets for September and November. I planned a city break with my husband in October. I planned some coffee dates and lunches with some friends. And I thought, what I'm going to do is be busy. And I also volunteered. So I volunteer in various ways for different organizations. And now, of course, I have the podcast. So like I'm chasing my tail all day long and doing that sort of thing and figuring out social media. But I thought, what I'm not going to do is stay at home and be miserable about it. And it's kind of funny. And Liz, I know Liz did the same. There's times when our kids start tracking us. They're like, Mum, you're in London today and you didn't even come and see me. I said, oh, that matinee. Sorry, busy. There was a museum visit. There was like a really good Chanel thing on at the V&A. And it's quite funny. I mean, kids need to know that you're happy when they leave, because that's awful for them when they're trying to negotiate their new lives and make friends. They don't want to be worried about Mum on the phone crying because she misses you so much. Hold it in, frankly. That's our job. We can go and do that in their bedroom, in their lonely, cold bedroom. We can go and cry and hold their teddy bear, but don't do it in front of them because it's tough enough already to leave home. And, put the work in, find a purpose. Do you want to go back to work if you haven't been working? Do you want to maybe retrain? Do you want to take an open university course or train as a nutritionist or do a Pilates course or Go and volunteer at your local charity shop. You do not have to be alone all day. There is no reason for you to do that. And even if it hurts a bit to push yourself out the door, I guarantee you will come home way more interesting and have more depth and interesting subjects to talk about. And before you know it, I have to say, being an empty nester is the most freeing, independent, wonderful, unfiltered part of my life. I've got, I do worry about them. Bigger kids, bigger problems. My kids could get pregnant. That's a bit different from, worrying about them at school perhaps, or, what tests they're going to get a score on. So yes, I do worry about them. This is blonde, but it could easily be grey. But I am so determined to feel my life because, we've been through it a bit, haven't we, with the pandemic? And I think we all realise that we should really live it to what. And it's not about money either. It's not about what you can afford. Going and, I don't know, working in a charity shop costs you nothing. You meet a lot of people. You're giving back. Working in a food bank. People always need volunteers. There is no reason to stay at home and wallow and eat bonbons and watch daytime TV. Just don't do it.
Great advice. This is great advice, and something we talk about all the time, because I think what's really common when we talk to clients is their self-identities become so wrapped up in either their career or their family, and then they get to this empty nest phase, and they're saying like, "Oh, who am I now?" Without being, the mother or the father that's looking after the kids. Like the kids have gone. Obviously, you still have concerns about them, as you say, but it's not the same as having them at home and you're responsible for looking after them. And a lot of people get stuck at that point because they've maybe lost touch with their values, their purpose. What they're like. Oh, what do I actually enjoy in life? I've kind of forgotten. So it's great. It's great advice you're giving there about rediscover your passion. We're always saying try and remember what you enjoyed doing when you were a kid or before your own children came along, or just if there's something you ever fancied trying, just go do it. Don't let your ego get in the way of being a beginner. Just go out there, have fun. Like you say, we have one life. Go out and live it. So great advice. Thank you.
I've got a question for you, Michelle.
Don't let your ego get in the way.
Sorry? Yeah. I've got a question for you, Michelle. What has been your most rewarding experience as a podcast host?
Oh. Okay, just remember I'm a midlife woman and it takes a little bit of processing. Do you know, do you know what makes me laugh? I'm now a presenter on a radio show on Tuesdays for Brooklands Radio. Never saw that coming. Like, that's crazy. Like, I'm so excited to do it. It's really funny. But my co-host, I do tell him this. I said, you can't just be live on air and go through a news story that's about, I don't know, International Cheesecake Day and suddenly say, so Michelle, what's your favourite cheesecake? Because I need a moment. I am not as fast as I used to be. And cheesecake is important. You've got to get it right.
Very important.
So what is my most...
Is it a chilled cheesecake? Is it a baked cheesecake?
It's a very, very
exactly. Is it New York style?
Yeah.
Precisely. You get me. But he'll do that quite a lot. And I'm like, Baz, don't do that. Or he'll ask me, sudden answers to questions. And I'll get it 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
Too darn late then, isn't it?
Well, I just think you've had so many amazing. If you haven't listened to the podcast, go and listen to it, and you'll see what we're talking about. Michelle has had so many incredible guests on her podcast. I was just sitting here wondering what the most rewarding experience has been as a podcast host.
Yeah, I think honestly, it's just learning from so many people and opening my mind up to subjects. People say to me, how do you choose the topics? And it'll just be because I thought, that sounds interesting. Like imposter syndrome, that's interesting to me. Do you know what my episode recently was about? Bees. And I know that's really random, but it's about how bee products are great for women and men in midlife. Royal jelly, pollen, propolis. And I think it's the randomness of this education I'm getting from experts, whether they're celebrities. My little black book is getting a bit fatter, so that's quite nice. But experts are absolutely fantastic. And learning about this, I don't know, it's a big world. And it's given me conversation when I go out. Once you get past that, so where are your kids? Yeah. And where are they at university? Yeah. We don't have to do that anymore. I can have a conversation about, I don't know, small talk, even walking into a room and watching body language or loneliness. And I feel like I'm a bit more real. I feel like I just have gone from being superficial small talk to actually, I mean, listen to me, like I just keep gobbing on. Sorry, just tell me to stop waffling. I could talk for hours.
I love it. I think it's so, you've just got such a lovely energy to you. And like the fact that you're saying you just feel more real. I mean, what's a better feeling than that? Like what is a better feeling than really being like feeling like you're you and accepting you? It's just incredible. So I love that. That's a very good answer.
And I'm trying new things. I'm not averse to trying anything, really. I'll tell you what I did the other day. It was so funny. So I've never done tweakments and things before, but I went and had my eyebrows done because I'm doing this episode about midlife droop. Okay. So, we've got bat wings and we've got, and our faces change. We get the marionette lines. So I thought I'm going to go and get my eyebrows done. So I had them done as permanent tattoo. Like, what am I thinking? But I went through a really, good person. Do you know, it took a whole week for my phone to recognise me on Face ID. I could have opened a new Instagram account with my eyebrows. It was so funny.
Are you happy with them? I mean,
they look great.
I am now.
You're happy with them? Because I was thinking about getting those done. I was thinking about doing that.
Oh, yes.
Are you a fan?
Yeah, I'm really happy with them now. I'm really happy. But I have to say, for the first couple of days, maybe a little longer than that, I get a lot of alarmed looks from people that I saw. I look like Dennis Healy.
Yeah, I'm going to ask, when you first have it done, I guess, does it get quite irritated? It looks a bit odd. Is that what happens?
Well, it's just so dark. I mean, look at me. I don't know if this is going out on video too, but I'm quite blonde. Yeah. Some of it natural, as I mentioned. But my eyebrows are just so dark. But it's calmed down now. And I just think I wouldn't have done that 5 years ago. I just wouldn't have done it.
Well, there we are, listeners. Michelle's now inspired me to look back into this, and maybe you are going to get your eyebrows tattooed because of this episode. Who knows? Do let us know. Do write in and let us know if you've had your eyebrows tattooed. So what would you say?
That's not where you thought this podcast was going, did you?
We love that. We love the randomness. Like you, Michelle, we love how when we're speaking to people, how it just
random direction.
Lots of questions to go through, but I think it's just gone exactly the way that it was meant to go through.
Exactly.
So exactly.
I was going to say, I think you're in season 7 now, aren't you? So like a big body of podcast work there. What are your plans coming up? What's next for you in the immediate future?
Okay, this is another thing that I have learned. When we first started doing these podcasts, we were advised by a production team, you've got to put a podcast out every week. So that's 52 weeks a year, and bonus episodes if you can. And Liz and I were like, oh, okay, I'm going to try and do this. And God, we're running around, we're doing the editing. And we can, like the day before it goes out, we're still finally editing. And one day I just literally stamped my foot and I said, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So we're going to pare back what we do. And I only want to put out a smaller number of good quality, well thought out, well researched, really nice episodes. So boom, changed it to seasons, do 3 of them a year. So that's only 30 episodes. I have a life. I want to go and see my kids because 2 of them live in the States and 1 is in London. And I think that's the maturity of being in midlife. I think that's sensible to look at life balance and think, why am I being told by a 22-year-old podcast person what to do? This is ridiculous. And also, I realised that when I would say to my friends, have you listened to the latest? No, I'm trying to catch up. There's just so many of them. Yes, I don't want to be inundated with things either. I haven't got time to listen to podcasts half the time unless I'm in the car. So, yes, I think finding life balance is very, very important. So that's one of the things that I did learn in the last 2.5 years, when to say no and to stick by it.
Yeah, I love that.
What was your question?
Appropriate, thanks. What's next for you in the immediate future?
Yeah, and what's next for you?
That was it. Tell you what, today is just like one of those unfocused days when I'm definitely, squirrel? Yeah, I'm off all the time. And that's what I do, fire off on different synapses.
But also, you've got a fellow ADHD guy here. You were good diagnosed.
The weather change has thrown me today.
Has it?
Yeah.
Has it? But he's also got ADHD. You were diagnosed a couple of years ago, weren't you?
Yeah.
So he's a bit like when you were saying about school. It's funny with me living with someone. I don't know whether you feel like this with your partner, but like living with someone, I think it's actually quite cute, some of the things that he does. Thank goodness, I think they're quite cute. And I'm like, oh, it's his ADHD again. But yeah, the whole very creative man, very inspired all the time. And he just goes, there's another squirrel. Oh, there's another thing. There's another thing. And he'll just go off. And a bit like Liz with you, I'm James's Liz, I suppose.
And back in the room. Back in the room.
Let's just try and figure out. So actually, you saying about you realising that you can only do so much even with the seasons of the podcast is probably quite a big thing for you, actually. And just go, actually, I'm reining it in. I'm not going to try and do too much because ADHD people tend to try and do lots of things all at the same time. So actually, that was a big thing for you.
It is. That's quite a growth thing for me to realise that. And I've already got basically every episode planned right through to the end of 2024 with guests as well. So that's really wonderful. And I love doing that. So what's next for me? I'm doing more lives. So I'm pushing myself to do that. I'm pushing myself on the radio. I may get my own show. Trouble is, I'm just so flighty. I tend to travel too much and I can never commit to anything. But I'd quite enjoy doing that. And, I want to keep going with Two Women Chatting because I love what I do and I never run out of guests. But I also don't need to focus, I feel, quite so much on the celebrity hook. So people who follow me, they might see that I've slightly adjusted. And it's not because I can't get people, because I'm fairly tenacious and I usually can. But I am finding women, and it is usually, you are my first man on the podcast when we talk about andropause coming up in season 7, actually. I just want to talk to women who talk about something that's interesting. And it can be anything. And I like that. I just feel like I don't have to focus on the celebrity so much. So that gives me a certain amount of freedom with subject areas too.
I love that. I love that. Well, listen, Michelle, how can people find out more about you? Can you give your handles or where you would like people to go to find out more about you?
I would love that. So please follow me on Instagram. I'm at Two Women Chatting. There's a theme here. Facebook at Two Women Chatting. And on my website, I have a midlife library, which is entirely free and full of, your blog on andropause is on there. It's full of subject areas and things you might not have thought about, going towards having an empty nest or maybe thinking about careers and so on. So twowomenchatting.com, midlife library is on there. I've got lots of offers and things with other brands. So you can find me there, really. So thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been absolutely lovely chatting to you. Mostly it's been me chatting, I do realise.
That's been fantastic. That's how we like it. You've been so inspiring, actually. So thank you.
I would say these words, real, inspiring, and uplifting. There we are. They're my words that I feel like you've brought to our podcast. So thank you so much, Michelle.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you too. It's been really lovely to chat.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Yeah. You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you. So drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under The Midlife Mentors. Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. And don't forget to take the Midlife Reset Audit now to receive personalised insights into what's holding you back from living your healthiest, happiest midlife. So go ahead and take the audit now at themidlifementors.com/audit.